computer. So again, two glitches today. One, I forgot to turn the video back on, and this time internet crashed. So I lost the connection to Zoom, and hopefully that doesn't happen again. What I need to do though is what I'm going to do here is I want to show you the difference between Photoshop and Illustrator. And that's really kind of critical, I think, as an introductory lecture. I think for everybody, though, you know what, before I do that, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and bring this back in here. And I didn't talk about the textbook, did I? So let me go back here and make sure that everybody has that. So if you look here at this week in class, and you scroll down, that I did talk about everything else. I talked about having access to Google Drive. I talked about having Adobe software, but I didn't talk about the textbook yet. So I forgot where I left off. If you click here on this link in either one of these, Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday, it will take you to Amazon.com. My recommendation is that you get the Kindle version or get a used copy of A Classroom in a Book. It does not have to be the 2020 release. If it goes back as far as 2018, that's fine with me. The changes that they've made in each of these is really minimal. It's not much at all. So you should be able to follow perfectly. And if you can't, then I'm providing the lessons for you anyway. So you should be able to work on them just fine. So anyway, that's the textbook. Get it in paperback, get a used version, or get the Kindle version, and you can get an older version, and that's fine with me. So that's that on that home front. So if I go back here, is there something else that I needed to cover that I didn't? And I talked about, did I talk about Chromebooks? You can't use a Chromebook with the Adobe software because it doesn't have an internal hard drive. So if you've already have the software, then you probably know that already, that could be an issue. So I think we're good to go. You just need a good computer, something that can run Adobe Photoshop. You have to get Photoshop if you don't already, and you need the textbook. And then you have to have access to Google Drive, and then we're set to go. Okay, so now what I wanted to do for the rest of today is to talk briefly about the difference between Photoshop and Illustrator. How many of you who are here have had Illustrator before? Anybody? You can go ahead and raise your hands or something like that. No, no one's had it before. Okay, that's just probably just as well. So, but let me show you the difference between them. At the moment, I'm in Adobe Illustrator, and I think that's the best way to illustrate the difference between Photoshop and which is a raster or bitmap program, versus Illustrator, which is an object-oriented or vector program. Because in Photoshop, the resolution or number of pixels per inch is really critical, depending on what you're going to, how you're going to present your image. If you're going to present your image in Photoshop or your image on the web, it need only be 72 pixels per inch. If you're going to print it, then it very often needs to be at least maybe 200, 240, ideally 300 pixels per inch. That's important for the Photoshop files. For Illustrator, it's less critical because it's vector oriented. So let me show you the difference here. I'm going to go ahead and click on the ellipse tool. I'm going to move this down like so. And I'm going to make a little circle, and I'm going to fill it with a pattern. And if I zoom in here, I can zoom in way in. You'll notice that you don't see any degradation in quality. You see that the curves are perfectly smooth. You don't see any pixelization, no blurring, no nothing. It's perfect. That's because all of the shapes, all of the paths in Illustrator are defined by mathematics. Okay. Now in Illustrator, I have the option in here of converting this or rasterizing this. And if you are going to use this image for the web, you would have to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down the Option key, and I'm going to click and drag and make a copy of it over here. So they're identical. Now what I want to do is I want to go to the object and I want to rasterize it. And here's that right here under Object. And it gives me some options here. Do I want the color mode to be CMYK? If this is going to be printed, yes, I want to leave it CMYK. If it's going to be printed, do I want it to be high resolution, 300 pixels per inch? Yes. Do I want a white or a transparent background? I'm going to show you white just to show you what happens. That raster images can only be rectangles. Vector images can be any shape. So instead of 300 to drive the point home, I'm going to make it 72 pixels per inch. And I'll click OK. Now, at this size, the image looks just fine. But if I zoom in on this, or I choose to enlarge it later, look at the difference between the two. Really dramatic. The vector image to the left, perfect. Crystal clear, flat, two-dimensional, but nevertheless, a perfect image. The one to the right, which has been rasterized at 72 pixels per inch, you can see all the individual little pixels when it's enlarged. So that's a huge difference. That's the point that I wanted to make. Okay, so when we switch to Photoshop, we go back here, and this is sort of touching on the first lesson that we're going to do, but I'm not going to do the first lesson. Is that what I can do is that I can go to, because I have both versions, the start and the end version. I can go to Window and I can select Arrange, and I can select that I want two up vertically. So now that we're going to be looking at both. Okay, this is the start version and this is the end version. But what you need to know anytime you open a file in Photoshop is, number one, what is it going to be used for? If you're designing for the web, it need only be 72 pixels per inch. If you're designing for print, you need to know the physical size and you need to know what resolution you'll need from the printer. And generally that will be 300 pixels per inch, but not always, but that's typically the ideal resolution. If I look in the lower left-hand corner here and I click, I can see that this image, it's very tiny down here, but if you do this with yours, it gives me the physical size in pixels and in inches, the width and the height. It tells me how many channels, so that this is an RGB, and it gives me the resolution. It happens to be at 200 pixels per inch. Okay, that's one place to look. A better place to go is to go to image size, and you'll find the same information. And it tells me that it's 980 pixels by 1372 pixels. Okay, so the width is 4.9 inches, almost 5 inches. The height is almost 7 inches. At resolution is 200 pixels per inch. Now, if I leave the width and the height linked to one another, I can, the length and the height and the resolution, I can change the resolution. So if I need a bigger image, but it will only be for the web, notice what I have. If I change it to 72 pixels per inch, I've expanded it and now it can be a much larger image. However, if I need to be a higher resolution image, let's say instead of 200, I told you that I wanted it 300. Now it's only going to be 3 by 4 inches. So a little tiny postcard, and that's it. If you try to print it any bigger, it will typically get pixelized or it will get blurred, just like I showed you in Illustrator. So that's the importance of understanding resolution in Photoshop, whereas in Illustrator, you don't have to deal with that typically unless you deal with a raster image, and that's it. Okay, so 2 things that you always need to know in Photoshop. What is it going to be used for? Okay, so that will tell you if it's going to be for printing. With offset lithography, then typically 300 pixels per inch. If it's going to be for the web, 72 pixels per inch. And then you also need to know the physical size. In printing, that will generally be in inches, and in the web, it will generally be in pixels. So here, I can view this either in pixels up here, or I can switch to pixels here if I want, points, picas, millimeters. And it allows me to resample this, which we will do at another time. And I'll talk about that later. So that's really important. So that's what I wanted to talk about. If you ever want to know the size of the image, you go under image, image size. You come down here to the lower left-hand corner and click, and it will give you the size in inches and pixels. And if you would prefer to have rulers up, which they are on both of these images, by default, typically rulers are not visible. But if you hit Command R, that will make them disappear. Command R will make them reappear. And if you ever want to switch from inches to millimeters or centimeters or pixels, you go to Photoshop Preferences, and you switch here to units and rulers. And then when we look at it here, you can see that right now the rulers are in inches, the type is set in points. And that's typically how I want to keep things here. Okay, and print resolution is 300 pixels per inch, resolution is 72. We always want to keep that for this class. So that's rulers. Let's look over to the left here. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at our toolbar here. And I will cover this more thoroughly on Thursday, show you what all of these tools do when we do this lesson, first lesson in the book. But this is where you find all of your tools. And then you have an options menu at the top. So every time you click a different tool, you'll notice that the options menu or the options panel at the top changes. And it adds functionality to the tool that you have here. Okay, so if I want to add text for any reason, I can come over here and I can select the font, I can select the style, I can select the size, I can select the color, I can select whether I want it flush left, centered, flush right, and I'm set to go. I can also, if I want, make some changes in the properties panel too. So right now I don't have character selected, but you'll notice that there's the color bar, there's the properties for the type here, the width, height, and character over here. Okay, so that's popping up here in the properties panel. So there's a lot of redundancy built into this. And then at the bottom, I like having layers up here all the time. I like having channels visible to me, and paths are probably less important, but mostly layers. We'll be using layers a lot this semester. So panels too generally give you additional information that the options panel doesn't, or the options menu. But in many instances, it duplicates, and it is kind of a redundancy that's built in to Photoshop as well as Illustrator and other Adobe programs. If you don't see the menu that you're looking for here, then it will be found under the window menu up here. And notice that the ones are checked are the ones that are visible. And if you want something that isn't visible, for example, if I want to see the character menu, I can go to do that and bring it up. So now not only do I have the character over here, which is under Properties panel, but I have it here as well. Okay. Now, another thing that we can do is that I have a number of desktops available at my disposal. And it's like setting up the desktop in your room. You know, what is most convenient for you? Where do you like to put your pencils, your pens, your paper, your ink, your paints, all of that sort of thing. And where that is done in the upper right-hand corner here. So what I can do is right now I have Kirk's workstation. But what if I want to switch and I want to switch to Essentials? That goes back over here. And if I'm not sure if that's the original, I can click here and I can say, I want to reset Essentials. And now you'll notice that I have a Learn panel here, and I have a library that it's accessible, and which we'll talk about later this semester, but I'm going to close that. And I'm going to leave this alone. And let's say, for example, I like having my Properties panel over here. Let's say also, maybe I like having my swatch panel visible. So here's swatches. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put that over here. So I like having that. And let's say maybe in addition to that, I like having the character panel up all the time. So I can come down here and I can open up the character, and I'll go ahead and I'll just tear it off and put it right here. So I like having those visible and at my disposal all the time. Well, what I can do is I can create my own custom desktop. And I do that by clicking here and I say that I want to create a new workspace. So I'm going to call it Kirk's new workspace. And select save, and now that's saved. And because I have changed the Essentials, when I go back to Essentials, it looks the same. But if I go back up here and I say that I want to reset Essentials, it goes back to its original configuration, the one that I had just shown you. And again, if I close that, that looks pretty good. And I say, you know what, I want mine back again. And now I have two. I have Kirk's new workspace and I have Kirk's workspace. So if I select the new one, it goes back to exactly what I had before. And if I want to go back to Essentials, I can go back to Essentials, which takes me back to what I had just before. You also notice that there are other default workspaces. There's for 3D, there's for motion graphics, because you can edit video on a limited basis in Photoshop, which we will cover in a later lesson this semester. You can do digital painting, which we will do later this semester. And there's an assignment covering that. There's another custom workspace for photography and for graphics and web design. So there are some default settings that you can tinker with and you can create your own. Okay, so those are the panels. We will be using layers, channels, all of these, a good chunk of these under the window menu later this semester. Okay. If you're wondering what kind of projects we're going to do this semester, I'm going to pull this back down, and I probably should have done that earlier, because some of you may just kind of close up and go someplace else. But if we go up here to Kirk's classes, okay, and we look at the slideshow that I have available, I'm going to jump ahead here, and I'm going to look at the first one right here. I'll probably do some variations on some of these. But the one that I have, that I've been doing for a few years now, has been the selfie photobomb assignment. And I think I'm going to expand on that. We'll see. It's basically the postcard assignment. So it need only be 5 by 7 or 8 by 10 inches. But what I have everybody do is to find a photograph on the web of a famous person. Could be, you know, in the movie industry or in music or in politics or whatever. One that's recognizable. And then what you need to do after we've done a series of lessons is that you're going to insert yourself into that photograph. And the goal is to make that, that final image done seamlessly, so you can't tell that it's been doctored in any way. In this one, Alberto did a really very nice job of including himself in a photograph with George Bush. And I guess this was taken during Easter, and George Bush has the bunny ears. So it's done with some humor, some of these. Some are done a little bit more seriously, but I think they're all kind of very interesting. This one was done by Sarah Lee a few semesters ago. It was really, I think, done exquisitely. She found a good photograph of the Sherlock movie. I can't think of it. I'm drawing a blank with the actors right now. Robert Downey Jr. to the right, who was Sherlock, and can't think of the guy to the left. Anyway, both big actors. And she found a good photograph. And then she set up herself, matching the lighting, and then in Photoshop, matching the coloration and everything, and then integrating her with a photograph. This is probably one of the best ones that I've seen, done really beautifully. I will probably give you more options this semester than I have in the past, since we're working asynchronously. The other one here was done by Brandon Gonzalez. And again, it's done with humor. This is the year that our illustrious president, when there was what was it, sun, eclipse of the sun, stared at it without any sunglasses. And then, so he integrated himself with it. Really quite nice. Anyway, that's another example of that assignment. Another one that I've done in the past, which is a postcard, and it's was done in black and white. And I may have you do that this semester instead. Henry Juarez did this. Again, it's finding either original photographs or ones that you find off the internet, and taking bits and pieces of them and splicing them together to create a new original photograph, and at the same time include some text. So that was what he did. Another one, assignment that I give is a movie poster assignment. And in the past, this one has been done 11 by 17. And when we were in class, it was printed out. This is done by Isaac. And I have you do a movie poster that's personalized. It's as if you were to make, a movie of your life, an autobiographical movie, what would the name of that movie be? And what would that movie poster look like? It doesn't have to be, include a picture of you. It could be your alter ego. It could be any number of interpretations. But it has to look believable. It has to include credits and everything else in here to make it look really nice. Here's another one that Oscar Bohaca did of his family life. And another one, again, this is a very nice one by Richard Mowry, who did one of himself. Very shy person. So that will be another. This was one that an advanced student did that I may very well give you an option to do, which would be a public service poster. And so he decided to do something related to global warming, and it doesn't hit you over the head, but it says something very powerful in a subtle way, where he placed Noah's Ark and all the various animals in a flooded New York City. And again, I got all of these images off the internet. Very, very nice. Okay. One of the last assignments that we'll do will be a digital painting. And this is one that I have here that Avery Foruria did. It's starting with an original photograph, and then using the tools and techniques that we learn in lesson 10 converting it to a digital painting so that it looks less like a photograph and more like something that was done in watercolor or in acrylics or oils or something like that. The last assignment that I've had everybody do in the past that I don't have examples for online has been to do retouch or restore a photograph, and we'll see whether or not I have you do that this semester, but that in the past for many years has been my final assignment. Another assignment that I've given advanced students that I may give you at the very end, this might be your final assignment, is to do the Invisible Man project. And it's an assignment where you take a photograph of, and you can take it off the internet, or you can do one of yourself, an original photograph that you've taken or that you found in your closet somewhere. And what you do is wherever there is skin or texture, you know, skin, or flesh, you erase it. And then you have to put in, let me zoom in here so we can see a little bit better. You can see in here where even if you were to erase the head, you have to then fill in where the inside of the hat would be, the inside of the neck of the shirt, and the inside of the cuff here of his jacket. And you'll notice that his hand was probably wrapped around the neck of the guitar. So that needs to be fixed as well. So that can be fun, and it can be a challenging assignment. I might very well make that my final assignment for all of you. Okay. So these are some samples of what we're going to be doing this semester in addition to the lessons. And as you complete the lessons, you will upload the final Photoshop file onto Google Drive. And as you complete the final assignments, you will also upload those in the original Photoshop files into your Google Drive folder, the one that we are sharing together. Okay, so that gives us, I think, a pretty good overview. I know I screwed this up, or didn't intentionally, but I lost, somehow I lost the internet connection. It suddenly stopped. That happens once in a while. And so what I want to do now, before I leave today, since it is 3 o'clock, and I know that some of you probably have other things you have to do, and I can always continue this on Wednesday or Thursday, because one of the things that I didn't do Monday is that I didn't show you examples of show students examples of previous students' work, which I should be doing, give everybody an idea of the kind of projects that I give. And I try to make them interesting and fun, and something that you can sink your teeth in and apply what you've learned in the lessons in the book. The lessons in the book are prescriptive. These assignments, which are equivalent to tests, are descriptive. What do I mean by that? Is that prescriptive lessons, or a prescriptive way of learning, is kind of like a cookbook. What you do with a cookbook is that it gives you a list of ingredients, and with all of the lesson files, they provide those ingredients, and then it gives you step-by-step instructions of how to put it together. And when you're done, you put it in the oven, and you're done, and you have a cake or a pie or whatever it is that you're making. With a descriptive approach, I'm saying that I'm giving you a general idea of what you're supposed to do. I'm showing you one or two or a few samples of how they could look at the end, but you're welcome to go in any direction you want. And then you're supposed to take the lessons that we have done and apply them the best that you can, and utilize them to create a unique, hopefully creative project that's one that is that comes from you and not from a cookbook or a textbook. Okay, so that's really all I have to add today. And I'm glad that some of you were able to come back, and this will be saved and put on the YouTube video when we're done. So before we leave today, do any of you have any questions for me? If you want, you could put it in the Q&A, or let's see here. Yeah, that should be it. No questions? Everything is pretty clear? Have all of you emailed me? I hope you have. And I will very soon after this recording is done, I will add you to and invite you to my Google Drive account. Okay? So if we were done today, I'm sorry that the web crashed and I had to pause for a few minutes to restart my computer and restart my modem and everything to get it going again. I don't know what happened, but it just suddenly quit on me. Maybe we had a power outage or something, but I don't think so. And I will see all of you either tomorrow. You're welcome to join me tomorrow to continue with this at 2 o'clock, or I will see you on Thursday. Question from Tara. Oh, okay. Now, Tara Scott. So let me look at Google Drive here. Did you email me earlier? So hold on here. I don't want that one. I want this one. There we go. So let's go back. So when did, Tara, when did you email me? So I'm going to look at the Tuesday, Thursday here. And these are the people that have already signed up. Now, I may have put you in the Monday, Wednesday here. So go ahead and email me again, and I'll be sure and get you in this afternoon if you don't see yourself. Does that answer your question? So we can try that again. So make sure that you email me, and that may have been something that I overlooked. Yeah, see, I'm having errors today, and that's no good. But that's the nature of computers, okay? That's that one. That's this one. Oh, if you weren't, okay, if you were invited, did you then, here, if on a separate day, if I invited you, let's go ahead here. No, come on. Which one is it? This isn't the Google Drive I want. And this happens when I quit and I restart, and then I don't have anything prepared here. So I'm going to go to this one. Oh, here, this was Google Drive. So let me go back and I'll show you what you need to do. And this has to come from you. So I'm going to go back here. We're going to look at the Tuesday, Thursday. Okay. So here we have Tuesday, Thursday. So what I need you to do is to right click. Hold on here. That's, hold on here. That's inbox. That's something different. Let me go ahead and bring up Google Drive again in case it's not here. Because this happens from crashing before. So I'm going to double click in here. This is the Tuesday, Thursday. Come on, don't crash on me again. Okay, so if you were invited, then in your Google Drive, what you need to do is you should have access to this folder. And then you need to right click. Once you're in here and you see all of these, right click and create a new folder for yourself. I mean, I can try to do that right now if you like, and it should be okay. So let me try it, and hopefully you can upload a file to it and test it and see. So here's a brand new file. Come on, don't do that to me. New folder. Not letting me make a new folder. So why is that? Oh, holy moly. Let me open up mine here, make sure that this is available. I'm having problems again, so I might be having internet problems again. I'm going to reload the page and see what happens. Okay, so now I right click, new folder. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and name it T. Scott. Now I've done this for you, but you guys need to do this yourself. So it kind of, that proves to me that you have access to it. So what you might want to do now, Tara, is to go ahead and, yeah, and make sure that you can add a file to it. Okay. So if you made a folder that it may not be in the correct Google Drive, it may be in your Google Drive, but it may not be added to this one that I invited you to. So make sure that when you're looking over here, shared, it says shared, and you probably over to the left, you'll see other drives. See that? These are all of mine that I have access to. You should see the one that we have here, that this will be the name of it. Daniela Valenzuela, you emailed me today, but I haven't been added. So that could be very well, what did you, which one is yours? Is that it? Yeah, I haven't added you yet. So after we're done today, all of these emails that have not been opened yet, you will get an invitation very shortly thereafter. And if you still don't see it, then we will deal with it on Wednesday or Thursday. So, Kara, do you see that? Is it, you see what I'm talking about? So were you able to see the folder that I'm talking about and make sure that you add your folder to the one that is shared? It might be a little bit confusing, so I may have to go over this. Again, I don't want that. I want this. There we go. So I have added your folder, but make sure that you, when you upload your files, you're putting it in the correct folder that is shared with me. Because on Google Drive, you can have other shared accounts and you can have other folders that I don't have permission to see. This is the one that is on my Google Drive that I am sharing with all of you. And don't at any time, and I need to remind everybody in all of my classes this, don't ever touch anybody else's files because you do have access to them. I mean, you can see them, you can edit them, you can delete them. Don't do that. Okay, Daniela, that's good. How about Tiara? Tiara, do you see that? what I could do, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to call it a day. And if Terry, you want to hang around, because I'm going to stop recording, and I think that'll be good for today. And then what we can do is that I can elevate you to panelist. You can share your screen, and I can see what yours looks like, and we can see if we can work it out. Does that make sense to you? So I'm going to go ahead and move this up here. I'm going to leave this here, and I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to pause the